Hello guys, good day everyone. Let myself first introduce to you. I am Lloyd Ken M. Tomati of BSI Tech 1D under the major of Civil Construction. So before we start, I just want to acknowledge our professor in reading in the Philippine history, Professor Genevieve Ibocasi, who is the author of Corazon Aquino's speech before the U.S. Congress. Corazon Aquino was the author of the primary source, which is the Corazon Aquino speech before the U.S. Congress. She is known as the wife of optionist of Ferdinand Marcos Sr. She showed her mutiny and sadness through addressing the speech when she finally got her chance the U.S. Congress. What is the position or occupation of the author? The speech was personally by and written by Maria Corazon Aquino. She is the first female president and 11th president of the Philippines. At the same time, she was just a plain housewife playing the role and supportive wife of Benignos Aquino until her husband became an opponent of Ferdinand Marcos Sr. and was arrested upon returning for exile in 1986. Marcos called for election unexpectedly and Corazon Aquino became the anti-options presidential candidate, restoring democracy after the long dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos. It's also important to note what she is a speech writer. What are some of the facts about the author that makes his dependable in writing the documents? Corazon Aquino's family was partially prominent based in Tarlac province.
Good day, ma'am. I am Maria Nina Y. Villegas from BSI Tech 1D. I am reporting some sorts about Corazon Aquino's speech before the U.S. Congress. What were the author's motivation in writing the document? Cory Aquino's motivation was her husband's dream for the Philippine freedom. Cory Aquino was devastated and sad about the situation of the country, about the 2 decades of social and political oppression, when she said, "Still we fought for honor, and if only for honor, we shall pay." She emphasized that the fight that they started was not wasted, and it was not a nonsense one. That day, the Filipinos put up a good fight against the administration. The document was a press release document. It is the primary source of information which the speech of the former President Corazon Aquino gives us the insights on how Filipinos struggled to attain freedom and between the insisted resistance from past have inspired revolutionaries in our current era. The document described the struggles faced by the Aquinos to help the Philippines achieve freedom. The document also mentioned about the debt incurred by the former government before Cory Aquino. This speech also shows how the dictatorship transforms into democratic government. It shows the problem faced by Cory Aquino as soon as she became the president. For instance, the poverty and unemployment. The document mentioned the elections occurred after the death of Ninoy Aquino. His wife participated during the election and lost in the first election. During the second, which is snap election, she became the president and declares democracy in the country. And that's all, ma'am. Thank you and God bless.
Does the document have any interesting physical features? The document was clarified and intelligible. What is the date on the document if it has one? On September 18, 1986, 7 months since Cory became president, she went to the United States and spoke before the joint session of the U.S. Congress. Cory was welcomed along with applause. She took the podium and addressed the United States about her presidency and the challenges faced by New Republic.
Good day everyone, I am Fredeline Floriano from BSI Tech 1D. Historical background of the document of Corazon Aquino's speech before the U.S. Congress. Who was the audience for this document? Based on my readings, it was not clearly stated who were the audience on the said speech, but definitely it was for the Filipinos. Why do you think it was written? It was written because it is part of the Philippine history wherein it changes the life of Filipinos. Former President Corazon Aquino lodged an appeal for help. Addressing the House, she delivered a historic speech that managed to sway in our favor the vote for an emergency $200 million aid appropriate. In the moving speech penned by the speechwriter and our current ambassador to the United Nations, Teddy Locsin Jr. Aquino defended her reconciliatory stand on the communist insurgency, a sensitive issue in the U.S. Given that this was 1986 and asked for financial aid towards rebuilding the Philippine economy.
Good day everyone, my name is Rafael Didsumok and I'm here to report content presentation and analysis of important historical information. For questions number 1 and 2. Marcos was said to be president turned dictator and a traitor to his oath that suspended the Constitution and shut down the Congress. For even the institutions of the democracy, the press, the Congress, the independence of a judiciary, and the protection of the Bill of Rights, Ninoy was said to keep their spirit alive in himself. Cory said that Pinoy's death was the country's resurrection and the courage and faith by which alone they could be free again. Cory held out for participation in the 1984 election president, the dictatorship called, even if she knew that it was rigged. In an excess of arrogance, the dictator called for its doom in a snap election and was for me to challenge the dictator. We face a communist insurgents even as we carry a great share of the free world defenses in the Pacific, Cory said. Number 2. Corazon Aquino's appearance before the U.S. Congress provides an opportunity for the rhetorical critic to study. Number 1. How the form of speech, particularly the romantic form, enabled Aquino to establish the legitimacy of her claims as President of the Philippines. Number 2. How she used her role as Benigno Aquino's widow to complete the romantic myth. And number 3. What long-term implications this mythic form imposes for the Aquino presidency. The romantic mythos of hero meeting and defeating villain after prolonged struggle occurs in 3 distinct levels in the Aquino address. First, the physical confrontation between Ferdinand Marcos and Benigno Aquino establishes the myth. Second, democracy wages its war against the evils of the oppression as the Filipino rally to the cause of freedom. And finally, the global confrontation of democracy and communism involves the United States and newly free Philippines in alliance. By inviting the United States to assume the role of the martyred Ninoy as husband and protector, Aquino seals the success of her appeal, evident from the positive reactions from Congress. However, using the romantic myth may have both good and bad long-term implications on the negative sides. The myth may add to Aquino's posture as an impotent, fragile leader. On the positive side is the potent emotional impact in both the Philippines and the United States, which has empowered the politically disfranchised people and resulted in extra aid.
What new information have you learned through the document? When Coris Aquino's quote, "First, still we fought for honor, and if only for honor we shall pay." It means she emphasized that the fight that they started was not wasted and it was not a nonsense one. That day, the Filipinos put up a good fight against the administration. And lastly, the task had fallen on my shoulder to continue offering the democratic alternative to our people. It means she took responsibilities in taking care and fighting for the sake of freedom of the whole country. Contribution and relevance of the document. What is the relevance of the primary source to Philippine history and the Filipinos? Marcos Government Outlook. This document allows the Filipino people to know and to not forget the harsh reality during the dictatorship of Marcos. Lastly, since Corazon Aquino was the first female president of the country, her speech had a strong impact not just in country but also in the world's perception of women in power. Thank you for listening and watching.